Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Corey Rutnowski, publisher of Yankee T News. Welcome to the Yankee T News Hour. And tonight we have a special guest, Dominic Rapini. That's right. What the camera doesn't show is the standing O in the back. Okay, so he's running for Secretary of State. And if there's anybody who's the man of the hour, man of the season, who is needed in that position, it's Dominic. Let there be no question about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Court.
So we're going to take a few minutes to talk with him when people have questions, and we're just going to get into it. So I want to open with, it's probably a good thing. We were talking about that bill that was passed concerning expanding the basis for absentee voting.
Right.
So what is your take on that?
You know, my take is this is not our first rodeo on this legislation, right?
Okay.
We saw this in 2020, my fundamental objection was that it's a violation of our Constitution. We have a very carefully written Constitution that's been evolving since 1808, and we in that Constitution we have 6 reasons that you can vote that you can vote absentee. So you can be religious exemption, you can be out of town that day. You can be because you're an election official, and you're serving in the active military. And the 6th reason is because of his or her illness, right? Because you're too sick or disabled to be able to go to the polls. Very reasonable, and it's in our Constitution. In fact, that even there is a more liberal program than you see in most of the world. I think 45 out of 46 democracies don't even allow mail-in voting at all. And so, here in Connecticut, we have reasonable excuses for people to vote absentee, but it's in our Constitution, right? And I think as a conservative, I believe the Constitution is not a malleable document that you can just change at will, right? It's something that we make it very difficult to change, and it has to be changed for good reason. So we railed against it because it was unconstitutional. In fact, the same laws were passed in Pennsylvania in 2020. They were just recently overturned because they turned out to be unconstitutional. So here we are getting people an opportunity to violate the Constitution. They're getting air cover from Hartford, and it's not right. But there's other reasons why this bill is a problem for us, because we learned a lot since we did mail-in voting in 2020. So some things we learned. One, we learned that our Secretary of State at the time, Denise Merrill, said, let's send out an absentee ballot application to everybody so it's very easy for them. And she spent $7 million. Now, you can find this article on my website where I wrote an op-ed about it. The website is dominic4ct.us. And I wrote an op-ed with Ken Cuccinelli, formerly of the Trump administration. It was published in Real Clear Politics. And in there, I've pointed out something very simple. $7 million for an application that is freely downloadable off the internet.
Didn't the post office tell Denise you're wasting your time?
Well, I don't know what the post office told her, but I know that she wasted money.
Yes.
Right? $7 million for that whole program.
They warned her about the undeliverable addresses, and she ignored them.
Well, she learned a lesson, because when she did this, in the primary, 100,000 units came back, and then she did it again for the general election, where we estimate, because to a broader audience, we estimate about 184,000 were undeliverable. So one of the fundamentals of mail-in voting, like you see in Colorado, for example, is you have to have clean voter rolls. Now, you take that number on top of all the people who haven't voted for years, they're called inactive voters, that's almost 400,000 people that are either dead, gone, or duplicate. I mean, this is, Colorado at least makes a pretty strong effort to clean their voter rolls, and they just mail you to write the ballot. But it took them 7 years to do that. Colorado has signature verification, which we don't have, right? They have a whole process for it. And so without any of those safeguards, she went ahead and did that. And the other thing we don't have, like Colorado does, is county-based elections with full-time election officials. We have 169 towns that are part-time people that make $7,000 to $10,000 a year as registrar of voters. Okay, and we have town clerks who have many other responsibilities for their municipality. And we found that during this election, right here in Stamford, Lyda, who's your town clerk, she's very smart, very capable. She told us we were shut down for 2 weeks. We did nothing but process absentee ballots, because the result of this this law was a 5x increase in the amount of ballots that were being processed. So when we look back at 2020 and this legislation, which was passed, I believe, unconstitutionally, even though the Connecticut Supreme Court said it was okay, we think they got it wrong. In fact, we know they got it wrong.
Yes.
And but we've also found that since 2020, any problems we've had with our elections have happened because of absentee ballots. So, for example, in that same election, the difference between the amount of people who applied for an application and then the ballots were sent back out to them, of all the people who were sent out the ballots that they requested, 51,000 never came back. I mean, 51,000.
They requested them,
Yeah, people
but
said,
never
yeah,
sent
please.
them back.
No, they requested them. The town clerk sent those ballots to them as they requested them, but the voter never voted with them that we know of. I mean, we know they didn't vote because they're not shown on the records. 51,000 went missing. Now, a couple things could have happened. They could have said, yeah, maybe I'll go vote in person. Okay? Yeah, that could have happened. But did it happen? We don't know. Right? Were they lost in the post office? Like the 200 ballots that were lost in Enfield, or the 81 that were lost here in Stamford.
But if a person decided to vote, even though they got the absentee ballot, that would show up in the records.
Yes, we would know if they voted. So that's why we know these are missing, because they were sent out and they were sent out. Now they voted another way, Court.
Yes.
Right? It was easy to figure it out, but no, the Secretary of State never did the work.
No.
A complete lack of intellectual curiosity. You know, I'm a business person. I mean, if I'm going to do a program, I want to see how it works. I want to know what went wrong, what went right. I would have gone to my town clerks and said, okay, let's have that your AB list and see the 51,000 people. All right, how many of them actually voted?
Well, you go through it and figure it out.
You match them up town by town. No one did the work, right? And without those absentee ballot logs, I can't do the work either. Right. So that's a problem. We know that these things get lost in the mail. Right, we know 200 in Enfield went missing. 81 here in Stanford went missing just in a special election. We know that anytime there's fraud, realistic fraud, it happens with absentee ballots. In Bridgeport alone, there's like 11 or 12 people have been arrested and convicted of voter fraud, and it all had to do with absentee ballots, including Lydia Martinez, who's like the town clerk of Bridgeport now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the most recent example was Councilman DiFilippo, who's a landlord in Bridgeport. And, he faked the identity of his tenants, right? He knew they moved, right? They probably were on the inactive list. And he sent out fraudulent absentee ballots, and he was arrested back in August.
Okay.
Now, that's the one we knew about.
All right, that's one.
Yeah, that's great, but, it only happens if there's a whistleblower, right? If there's no whistleblower, we don't know. Which is why I think our goal's got to is to have elections that we're proud of, that they're trustworthy, fair.
Yeah.
But unless we're vigilant and we take those examples very seriously, then that is going to erode trust in our elections.
Right.
And my whole thing is, okay, I'm not saying there's a fraud here, there, and everything, although I there's certainly enough for us to be concerned about. I say I want to go after every one of those. So one of the things that Secretary of State I want to do is I'm going to commit to a forensic audit of Bridgeport. And we're going to go into that city.
Look at that.
Yeah, we're going to go in that city.
Boy, you're a real crowd pleaser.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, this is I don't say to please the crowd. I say it to please the voters of Connecticut, because we're the ones that have to, go out there and vote, and we don't want our vote being suppressed because we become apathetic and think our vote doesn't count.
Yeah.
So we're going to go in there and we're going to find the head of the snake, and I know who the head of the snake is, but we're going to go find that person.
Right.
And one of the things that we're going to learn.
Wasn't there a woman named Marilyn Monroe or something
Marilyn Moore,
who blew the whistle on absentee fraud?
Marilyn Moore was a Democratic state senator who ran against Joe Ganim in 2019.
Right.
And launched a lawsuit against him because all of a sudden she won in the polls in person, but then she lost 3-1 on the absentee ballots. Now that could be a go out, get out the vote effort difference and work, but that was actually still being researched today. For at least 3 years now, the SEC's been investigating. I don't know why they can't figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's not done. And the things that came up in that trial were issues around people, commercial addresses, people being coerced to vote, paid for their vote. Ballot harvesting is one of my major concerns in our state. And we know that there are operatives who are being paid to go door to door. I have video testimonials from people from the Harborview Apartments in Bridgeport or Clifford Apartments, and they talk about it. They knock on my door. I get pressure. They fill out the application. Then they come back for my vote.
But isn't this illegal?
That is illegal. It's illegal to pay for a vote or to take possession of someone else's ballot.
Okay. And they're not in jail. Why?
Because it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
We got 4 more minutes, so
Okay.
we have another.
Yeah. So when we talk about this legislation, and there's many other examples of things that I think we just got to get right first before we do this. And by the way, if this was constitutional, then why do we need a constitutional amendment in 2024?
Yes.
So obviously, everybody knows that what we're doing is we're stretching the legislation.
the
we're
thing
wordsmithing.
Right. The thing they keep hammering on, too restrictive, too restrictive. Our voting rules are too restrictive.
Right. So here's what I say to that. Connecticut has an average turnout in statewide elections of 75%. It's one of the highest in the country. All right. The national average is 66%.
Okay.
Those states like Georgia and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin that have they have early voting, they have mail-in voting, and they have all these things. And you know what? They have a lower turnout than we do. So what problem are we trying to fix with early voting, with mail-in voting? Right. Our people, Connecticut citizens, are smart, and we get out to vote. And we saw in 2020, 2/3 of the electorate decided to get out there and vote and in person. And the other thing we saw is that all the people that went in person, we saw that there was money set aside from the federal government to pay for increased PPE, to pay for the extra help needed by the town clerks.
Okay, yeah.
There's no such money now. So this becomes an unfunded mandate for everybody who is every town clerk, every town in the city.
Well,
and it's going to cost them at least 2/3 of what they spent in 2020. And where's that money going to come from?
Okay, so I guess we've got to wrap up. So why don't you,
We've got 2.5 more minutes.
2.5 more minutes. So how about it's the standard, why I'm running for this office?
Well, the reason I'm running for this office is as much work as I've done in the last 4 years on election integrity, it became very clear to me that there's not much I can do as a private citizen. I submitted, along with my friend Linda, we submitted the names of 103 people that appeared on our voter rolls who have voted twice. And they had the same name, address, birth date, right? And then they had 2 voter IDs, and they showed it voting twice in a roll. So, hey, we sent it to the state saying, hey, there might be something here you got to look at. And maybe it was a clerical error, right? And maybe there's something, a systematic area we can fix in our system. Or maybe it was, these people committed a Class D felony, right?
Yes.
But a year later, they had not investigated yet. And not only did they not investigate, but the Secretary of State, Denise Merrill, sent down a request to change the laws, the statutes, so that you can no longer see the birth date publicly of the voter, nor the voter ID. So you can no longer do that research, right? So, by the way, that's called a cover-up.
Yes, it is.
That's a cover-up, and it's pretty. That's my
good.
matzo ball soup is getting warmed up. I will take it warmed up, please. So, because we're just getting warmed up right now.
Right, that's right. Okay, so we got quite the battle in front of us, and
Right.
I will remind you the same thing Dominic would remind you of, which is DOMINICFORCT.us. Go to his website and donate.
Yeah,
the man
folks,
needs the money.
It's important. I'm at 75% of my fundraising goals,
Yep.
and I need everybody to chip in a little bit, unless you want to see things stay the way they are.
Oh, hell no. All right, thanks. Woohoo! Okay, all right. All right.